Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. What if in 9.2 or in a future patch of World of Warcraft we got to use not one, but two legendaries? Back in Legion for the last patch of that expansion, we got to upgrade ourselves from one legendary on a character equip to two legendaries, and potentially in Shadowlands for a future build, we could also gain the same benefit. So in this video, I kind of wanted to shop the idea as a what if, as none of this has been confirmed by Blizzard at all, but what if at some point or another our characters could equip double legendaries? Which specs and classes would see the biggest gains? Of course, all of them would see extra damage. We have so many different Covenant legendaries that don't necessarily change the playstyle but would be a benefit. But which ones would have the wackiest, weirdest combos that could potentially be the next hidden gem? Again, this is all stuff that isn't confirmed. Blizzard didn't say that we are gonna have double legendaries, but a lot of players have guessed we'll get tier sets, potentially double legendaries like we did in Legion, and if we did, which builds would be the most broken and overpowered combinations we've ever seen. So let's dive into some of the ideas that I was able to put together. But before that, if you guys are watching these videos, majority of you are not subscribed. You watch these videos anyway, so you might as well hit subscribe, hit the bell, especially if you enjoy the 9.1.5 updates as well as potentially 9.2 and future WoW updates. So when talking about builds that are unique and interesting, we'll look at the different synergies, and we'll start this video off with the Paladins. Starting off with Retribution Paladin, taking a look at the legendaries, I found a synergy between Final Verdict and Vanguard's Momentum. Final Verdict has a chance to give you those free hammer throws with Hammer of the Righteous. I imagine with a big ramp up, you could have a lot of holy damage that feeds into Final Verdict, and Final Verdict is that just maintains that Vanguard's Momentum build. Maybe pair this together with Crusade and you're going for a rampy opener, it could give Retribution Paladins unmatchable holy damage. While on the topic of Paladin, let's take a look at Prot. They also have a very strong DPS build. Protected Paladins are known as a glass cannon, and they already put out quite a bit of damage inside of raids and mythic pluses. So what if you were to lean in on more damage output for a DPS godly build? The Mad Paragon together with Bulwark of Righteous Fury. Shield slams and hammers flying, especially as a Venthyr inside of a raid fight, I could foresee Protection Paladins doing more damage than a single DPS inside of a raid environment. Unless maybe you're a Venthyr Boomkin, this is the only spec I think you couldn't beat. But since they are a glass cannon, sometimes feeling a little squishy unless they're in the right capable hands. You really need to know how to handle your Prot Paladin. What if you were to make a tanky cheat death build? Together with the Ardent Protector Sanctum and Reign of Endless Kings, you could rival some of the Guardian Druids and Mythic Pluses, just being an absolute destruction machine with quite a bit of damage, but going for a way tankier build in order to survive any damage output. Moving on to Hunters and taking a look at those, there's not a lot of cool, interesting builds from Marksman and Beastmaster that's super wild. A lot of them are strong in Covenant legendaries together with some of the current legendaries that Marksman and Beastmaster runs would always benefit and be quite strong. But nothing is as wacky as a survival Grenadier build or an infinite bomb build. Together with Wildfire Cluster buffing the damage of your bombs, and Rylak Stalker's Confounding Strikes, which can give you sometimes grenades back for pressing Raptor Strike or Mongoose Bite. Together with Carves in the Mythic Plus scenario, massive AoE damage, I could totally see them just bombing the hell out of enemies in AoE. Just absolutely unparalleled, unrivaled AoE damage, and with a bit of luck, probably would be the strongest consistent AoE. Next we have Rogues, and there's some couple interesting synergies there as well. Assassination Execute Boss Slayer build. Doomblade together with Zoldyck Insignia. The Insignia would buff the damage of your poisons and bleeds on an enemy when they're below 30% health, so it makes for a great Execute legendary. Together with Doomblades, which buffs the damage of your envenoms further for every bleed on the enemy, you can totally see the synergy. Imagine a raid boss, last boss of 9.2 in a long, prolonged execute phase, because Blizzard loves those sometimes. You would be an unmitigated boss machine as long as the boss is crippled in the low health numbers. Outside of that, Outlaw Rogue Vanish build. It's almost like an Outlaw Rogue pretending that they want to be a subtlety rogue. Invigorating Shadow Dust for cooldown reduction, which Outlaw comes with already a ton of cooldown reduction. Even a Roll of the Bones buff has some cooldown reduction there as well. Together with Deathly Shadows, a very strong legendary for Outlaw Rogues currently. Imagine this in Mythic Pluses, constantly vanishing, constantly gaining combo points, and constantly resetting the cooldowns of your offensive abilities, as well as defensive, for a weird utilitarian, but potentially a powerful cooldown reduction oriented build. Then comes Priest. For Priest, there's a lot of good legendaries for Disc, as well as Holy, lots of healing, as well as utility, but nothing that's super crazy and wacky. The only thing I could think of that's kind of wacky is a Priest Necrolord build, since Necrolords already play with a legendary that allows their Covenant Necrolord ability to spawn a Magus, a Shadow Magus of Necrolords blasting the enemy, and kind of you play a pet build where the pet does quite a significant amount of damage for you. What if you paired it together with an already Mindbender legendary, so now you're playing that double full pet build? You almost become a Beastmaster Hunter every minute or so, which would be hilarious to see. I think that could be a very fun build, but besides that, nothing wacky beyond it. Next one would be a weird one, but for Blood Death Knights, you could go with a Vampiric Aura legendary as well as another Lego to reduce the cooldown of Vampiric Aura. This is a weird one, but it does provide for Blood DK in a party of 5 like a Mythic Plus, and defensive for their group. Kind of like a rallying cry, but a lot more liberally used since you can get a cooldown reduction element, so you can use Vampiric Aura to survive, but also you can use it to buff allies' health so they can live mechanics. It's a weird one, but it allows a Blood DK to actually contribute towards group survivability, which I thought was really neat. But what if you wanted to also try a Death and Decay build? For Unholy or Blood, you could maybe combine Death Certainty together with Pheromones, granting you and your minions haste buff, which would give amazing amount of resource generation with some cooldown reduction for Death and Decay. For Unholy and Blood, this could be some weird wacky synergy, especially with that extra fear from Pheromones would be very disruptive for enemies like casters inside of Mythic Pluses. For Shamans, we have a lot of legendaries to take a look at, and I think Shamans are going to be one of the classes with the most benefit from double Legos. Starting off with Elemental, there's a lot of strong ones that could just be put together that, while not synergetic, would definitely be a damage increase. Hell, there's a lot of Covenant legendaries that would work with the current legendaries that would just amp up their damage. But when we're looking for the wackiest combinations, imagine an Elemental Shaman Elemental build with Deep Tremor Stone Totem and legendary, as well as Skybreaker's Fiery Demise. You have a Fire Elemental with the Lego acting for him, and an Earth Elemental with a Constant Earthquake. At the start of a pull, popping both of those bad boys, not making them primal so you can have both of them available. I think that could be a really cool thing to see, just having those elementals be present and active for the damage phases. For Enhance, we have a lot of very overpowered synergies. Starting off with Enhance, big cooldown reduction on your Ghost Wolves, Witch Doctor's Wolf Bones, which gives you cooldown reduction when you build Maelstrom, and Legacy of the Frost Witch with constant Storm Strikes that you can spam. With a couple talents that give your Storm Strikes extra chance to hit, but also more Maelstrom generation, you would go into a situation where you summon your Ghost Wolves that generate your Maelstrom. You spend the Maelstrom into a Lightning Bolt, into a Storm Strike since that got reset. Storm Strike generates a lot of Maelstrom, Lightning Bolt again. Storm Strike, Lightning Bolt. You generate Maelstrom, spend it, generate, spend it, and you have constant array of wolves that you keep sending at the enemy. If cooldown reduction build doesn't really sound that good to you, you could just combine something like a Doom Winds, which gives you just absolute primal damage every minute, together with something like Primal Lava Actuators for a machine gun build where you're storm striking and lava lashing the enemy constantly as you're getting crazy amount of procs and cooldown reduction. But definitely Enhancement, I think, is going to be one of the specs in the game that would benefit the most from double legendaries, but those are some of the strongest ones that I came up with so far. For mages, for Arcane in particular, I imagine a double barrage legendary build, and this was actually brought up by a viewer of mine, where if you played the Arcane Harmony, where missiles stack up the damage for your barrage, together with the Execute Barrage legendary, that combination is a Kyrian with all the different modifiers for damage. I mean, the current build with just one Lego allows your barrage to do 200,000 damage on the boss already. But imagine with an execute phase on top of it, you would just be unmitigated boss slayer, especially if bosses hover at low health. But for the rest of the mages, I looked at the legendaries, and honestly, I think a lot of them will end up running Temporal Warp, together with the current best in slot single target or AoE Lego. I think Temporal Warp is going to be a must-have for many mages because it was very powerful in Legion, and I can imagine that'll be insanely strong in current Shadowlands raids. For Warlock, some of the wacky stuff I can imagine is maybe a Necrolord Warlock together with Affliction with Malefic Wrath build, or Demonology with Bale Spider's Burning Core build. The Necrolord legendary will buff up the ability that the other legendary would buff up as well, so maybe better single target damage output from the Warlock themselves. Maybe a Demonology build together with Horned Nightmare, where you can spawn a bunch of imps, together with Implosive Potential for a constant massive haze buff, especially if you're looking at AoE scenarios. This one could be really weird because of the fast cast that you will get to use constantly, especially if you get lucky on the imp drops. For destruction, I thought of maybe an infinite resource build, together with Cinders of Azakir for more conflagrations, as well as Embers of the Diabolic Raiment for more resource generation. And I found this build to be interesting for the fact that you will be able to just have resources constantly available. That's why I wanted to mention it in this video. Looking at the Monk Legendaries for Mistweaver in particular, I found a interesting combination of Clouded Focus together with Tear of the Morning. A massive, kind of AoE-ish, cleavish, burst healing build with a lot of supplementary reduction on the mana cost of you spamming out a bunch of abilities, but also having that massive ramp up mechanic to it. This combination of legendaries made me think of the Disc Priest ramp that they do with atonements on the whole raid party, and I imagine that Mistweavers will probably have an easier time doing that similar ramp and spending even less mana. For Druids, there's a lot of different legendaries, but the one that I thought would be the most hilarious is a Guardian Druid literal bear god build. Ursoc's Fury Remembered legendary, which is the Thrash Absorb, together with Legacy of the Sleeper. Literally used together, immortal, massive damage, zero healer required, actual bear god tearing enemies to shreds, constantly healing yourself, massive shields, literally invincible while also obliterating everything around you. The double bear legendary on focusing on damage, survivability, and even in some case cooldown reduction would literally make Guardian Druids even more broken than they are right now. Some classes in this video we didn't mention are Demon Hunters, Warriors, and there's a variety of different specs that we didn't really cover, but there's a lot of different legendary synergies that are just not game changing. Something where you just add the Covenant legendary together with your best class legendary for raiding or dungeons, and it already becomes exceptionally strong. There's some utilitarian stuff that could be really good too, but nothing that has this weird synergy that I really wanted to kind of explore in today's video. However, all of them would still be a gain for every single class, every single spec, even though some might be more interesting than others in the synergies. All of them will still be an upgrade either way. Thank you all so much for checking out this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Maybe there's a legendary class combo that I missed that you guys thought I should have maybe brought up in this video. Let me know that in the comments, but thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in the next one.